but that wasn't the first time that I got high, and it wasn't the last. And it was, marijuana was probably my first biggest drug that I actually continued more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you stop everything after you had that near death experience?
Yeah, I did, except for alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I say yes, but then on the other hand, I had this different idea that, because alcohol is so accepted, it's so normalized, I was like, I can keep drinking, that's fine. I've got control over that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it was only just last year, December, that I put it down completely and haven't touched it now in 8 months.
What's happening, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of the Real Drug Talk podcast. My name is Jack Nagle, and on this show we talk about all things drugs, alcohol, addiction recovery, and anything else interesting in the space. Today we've got Tamzin on the show. She's a spiritual healer and is into business and things like that, and has an interesting story with addiction recovery and sobriety that is a little bit different to, I guess, like the traditional pathways that people go down to get help for addiction recovery. So really cool show to bring you today. On that note, today's show, as always, is brought to you by Connection Based Living, which is our coaching program that we run. We've got a number of different ways in which we help. You can check that all out on the website. But what we recommend that you do is book a call, because what we do that's a little bit different is that we help people to get recovery without having to go to rehab and without having to check out of their life for 30, 60, 90 days or whatever it is. We actually help you to recover within your own community through connection, purpose, and a new direction on life. So if that sounds of interest to you and you're wanting to make some changes, please reach out, book a call. It's really easy to book a call and just have a chat. There's no obligations or anything like that. But the first step for anybody to take is just having that first initial chat. And if we can't help, we'll point you in the right direction. So that's Connection-Based Living. The details are down in the description below. But let's jump into today's show. As I said, let's jump into today's show. It's first thing in the morning. I'm trying to record this. But as I said, we've got Tamzin on the show. She's a spiritual healer, is into business, and doesn't have your typical sobriety journey story. And she gave up drugs early on in her life after a near-death experience, but also kept drinking and has only recently given up alcohol as well, and is on that journey too, and talks a lot about that as well. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff. Hope you guys enjoy it. As we've spoken about before, if you like what we're putting down, if you want to pick it up and you want to help in some way, reviews on the podcast are always great. Leave us a review, 5 stars. If you don't want to leave 5 stars, don't leave a review. No, just kidding. But yeah, no, leave us a review. Let us know what you think. It just helps us to boost through the algorithms and reach people that, might be struggling or want to hear some good stuff around addiction recovery in this episode's case, things like that. So I can't talk this morning. I'm going to leave it there. Let's jump into the show, and looking forward to vibing you again soon. Peace, everybody. Boom. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Real Drug Talk. I'm Jack Nagle, and on this show, we talk about all things drugs, alcohol, addiction recovery, and anything else interesting in the space. We've got Tamzin on the show today. How you going, mate?
Hi.
How's the day been?
Day has been great. I have been very abundantly busy, but really, really good.
Nice. Well, we've had a bit of a chat before we've jumped on the show today, and I know briefly a little bit about your story, not much, but you do have an interesting kind of take on addiction recovery, which is something that we like to hear on this show, just people finding different pathways with their story.
Mhm.
So interested to hear that. So the way that we start this off, you don't have to. It's just like a guideline, but we kind of say, give us the 3-minute version of your story, and then we kind of vibe off it from there. So if you were to jump into an elevator with someone and you had to tell them your story in 3 minutes, how would you let it fly?
I love that. I mean, I've never been asked that question before, but my story starts a little bit when I was a child. So I was a child in a domestic violent household,
Yep.
which really, I tend to look at that as like a past life because it was so long ago. But the work that I do now really does come down to like generational trauma or, inner child healing. And part of the trauma for me was that I actually genuinely forgot. I actually
Yep.
genuinely forgot how much I went through until I started doing the inner healing. And when I was 21, I had a near death experience, which I actually call a death experience, but that
Yep.
changed the game for me completely because from 14 to 21, I was using drugs,
Yep.
substances, alcohol, all that sort of stuff. But when I was 21 and actually died in a hospital bed, I saw God and all my past loved ones, and and I'm not religious at all. I think it's really important to touch on that. Like, I've never been dedicated to any type of religion. And when I saw God, my whole world changed that very next day. And from then onwards, I saw my and heard and was told my sole purpose. And I've then continued to ensure that everyone that I ever come across knows their worth and knows that they can live an abundant life and knows that they're the creator of their reality. So I have then dedicated every single conversation I've ever had back to spirituality and that, you can turn your pain into purpose.
Wow. What was that near death experience? What happened?
I had 4 broken ribs and I couldn't breathe. I could hardly breathe. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't eat. And I basically ended up in a hospital bed just on morphine and painkillers enough to just keep me still. And because when you break ribs, there's nothing you can do but, try and hope that they're going to heal. And one night after the doctors had pretty much sent me through all these tests, they said that there was a rib puncturing a lung and it looked like I had a week to live. And
Wow.
so I know. And so because I was so out of it for 3 weeks in a hospital bed, I was like, cool, sweet, take me. Like, if this is the way I'm going, then no worries. Like, my life in really up until that point wasn't even worth living because I was high every day anyway
Yep.
since I was like, 14, 15. Um, and I was like, no worries. Like, maybe this life wasn't even meant for me. And then that night in the hospital bed, I died and I, went to the heavens and I saw God under the white arch and all my past loved ones, which I had a lot. So death was pretty like a normal thing in my reality. A lot of
Yep.
people died. And then the next day I woke up and I was like, I'm still in this body. What's going on? I thought I
Yep.
had died. And then I stood up from that bed for the first time in 3 weeks and I pulled the needle out of my arm and the morphine needle out of my leg. And I walked up to reception. I was like, I died last night. I'm going home. And they all like tried to rush me back to the bed and was like, you literally are like gonna die. You need to go back. And they tried to shove that needle back in my leg. And I was like, no, I died. Anyway, it ended up they couldn't legally let me leave because they had declared through the medical system that I was going to die. And so they said, in order for us to let you leave, we have to take you through all these tests again. And they didn't find any broken ribs.
Wow. Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Um, that's super interesting. So, how did you? So, did you? How did you like get the broken ribs to start with? Was it because of using and drinking, or was it?
Well, funnily enough, I guess yes. However, I actually have this condition called costochondritis, which is a weak rib cage in general. And
Right.
I used to fracture ribs throughout my whole life. I used to break ribs. It was a very normal part of my reality, just being in so much pain, physical
Yeah.
pain. However, the night that I actually broke all four ribs, I was drunk and I spewed.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
it. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's so crazy. What a crazy experience. And I love hearing people's different experiences with it because, like I've had near death experiences or death experiences, as you said, with using drugs, and that hasn't happened to me. So I'm always like fascinated when I kind of wish it has happened to me, because it sounds like people get so much purpose and meaning from it when
Mm.
some an experience like that happens. So um would you say that like the usage for you started because of like some of that domestic violence stuff that was going on in the home and it was a way to escape, or was it like a number of things that were going on?
I don't know. Like, to be completely honest, it's just the environment of people that I was hanging out with were all just
Yeah.
getting stoned. They were just getting high. And I had this mindset. I was 14 when I don't know how much you can talk about, the specific words, but I was 14 when I first had marijuana.
Yeah.
And it was more so around the fact that the people I was hanging out with did that. And I had this little voice in my head saying, you're never going to do this because if you do, life will go down the drain, just like the environment that you were, raised in, the people that were in that. But I did it because I just thought that I had control over not doing it again. But
Yeah.
I but that wasn't the first time that I got high, and it wasn't the last, and it was marijuana was probably my first biggest drug that I actually continued more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you stop everything after you had that near death experience?
Yeah, yep, I did, except for alcohol.
Yep. Yep.
So I say yes, but then on the other hand, I had this different idea that, because alcohol is so accepted, it's so normalized. I was like, I can keep drinking. That's fine. I've got control over that.
Yep.
But the reality is that it was only just last year, December, that I put it down completely and haven't touched it now in 8 months.
Yep.
But I
Wow.
didn't
Wow.
I didn't drink every day. So I was a different type of I just had a bad relationship with alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And this is what I wanted to talk to you a bit about, because I think it's interesting. You said you had a different idea. You weren't drinking every day, but you had an unhealthy relationship or a relationship that you weren't happy with to alcohol. I find it really interesting people's different journeys throughout their life and just how things are set up. And I think that's the way that the conversation sort of has to go with all substances is like, what's your relationship with them?
Mm.
Because people use them in all different kinds of ways for different reasons. True, and it sounds like the
Absolutely.
case in your life. Yeah,
Mm. Absolutely. And I think that for me, it was, I was getting high every day. I used other substances. Like, I now have the knowledge of knowing that I was actually a poly user. See, back when I was using, I just did it. Like, I didn't dive too much into all the awareness or the knowledge or anything. I just did it.
yeah,
And alcohol and marijuana were my top two substances, because they were just so easy. It
yeah,
was genuinely so easy. But then I came to realize that I don't need substances to be high on life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. Um, so so when you stopped it, when you had the near death experience, how old were you then? Sorry.
21.
21. So when you stopped then, like what did life turn into or what did it look like from there?
It was hard. It was
Yeah.
very, very hard. I lost all my friends. I lost all my relationships, my connections, the fun in life. I actually had to learn who I wanted to become and who this new version of myself, and discover this new identity of who do I want to be in comparison to who I've always been. And it was like this epiphany of we don't have to continue to be who we've always been. We can become something different. And I think it was a lot of like internal and mental struggle to find myself again. Um, but also the environment and the things that I found fun and enjoyable in life, because everything that I did prior, I only got enjoyment out of it because I was high anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So interesting. So interesting. How hard was it to lose like the connections that you had with people?
I love that you mentioned that having the near death experience like mine is very different to some people's near death experiences, because I think it would have been a lot harder
Yep.
to deal if I didn't have such an awakening and a realization and epiphanies, because it would have been a lot harder if I didn't,
Yep.
have it was like this forced new lease on life. And
Yep.
it was like that surrender and that acceptance of like, you know what, so be it. Like, I have to just learn a different way. And yeah, it was hard. I wanted to get high again, but I
Yep.
had to, it's like I discovered this angel and this devil, the two little voices in your internal dialogue, where you're like, the angel tells you to be good and the devil tells you to be bad. And which one are we going to listen to in
Yep.
every moment of our day?
Yep. Yeah. Interesting. So it sounds like spirituality has now become like such a huge part of your life. Is it from that moment, would you say? And then has there been other moments that have like intensified it?
Um, I've I'm pretty sure for my whole life I've been spiritual. Like
Right.
my whole life, it's just that I actually thought it was normal. I
Yeah.
actually thought everyone thought and perceived life the way that I do. I always thought that everyone could hear voices. And I always thought that like everyone could communicate with spirit or telepathically communicate. I thought that everyone was able to do and have these like abilities that I now know are, gifts or abilities. But when I
Yeah.
was younger, I actually had three invisible friends who were actually fairies. And I thought that everyone could see through the veil and connect with like the fairy realms or what have you, in the spirits. Um, but throughout my drug use and my substance abuse, I lost all of that. I lost
Right.
all of that connection. The near death experience definitely awoken some aspect in my mind, but then
Yeah.
I continued to just push that to the side, and I dedicated on working a lot and making a lot of money. And so
Yeah.
that's what I did for the next 4 years after that. It's just worked a lot, sometimes 20 hours a day. And just I was dedicated. I started to turn my drug addiction into a financial addiction, and I've
Yeah.
just worked because I have an addictive personality. So it was like I channeled it into something else.
Yeah.
And then when I was 25, I had a kid, and then at 27 I had another child, and now I have two kids. And so I have channeled my energy and my addictive personality into helping other people discover their true selves.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that addictive personality. Like, have you found that? Did you, do you, so it sounds like you believe that you have that. Did you find it coming out in other areas of your life? Well, obviously the work aspect, which is interesting. Like, can I ask you about that? Because so many people talk about this when they get into recovery, like their addictions coming out in other areas of their life. And in a lot of ways, like work is a socially acceptable aspect for it to come out in,
Mhm.
but it can be like painful as well. even though like it was socially acceptable and it was probably like benefiting your life in a lot of ways by making money and things like that, was there elements of it that were like painful and that were causing negative impacts in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When I think back to like after I put down all the substances except for alcohol, like I really want to make that clear. Like I was still socially accepting of myself to drink, but I didn't drink every day. Um, I became obsessed with making legitimate money,
Yeah.
like this idea of legitimate money and working as an employee for multiple different businesses. And there were days where I was actually hallucinating
Yeah.
because had not slept.
Yeah.
So it was like that sleep deprivation actually made me feel like I was high when I knew that I hadn't had anything. So I started to go into this idea of like, maybe I can just get high on life. Like, how can I get high on life? Which isn't healthy either.
Yeah.
I had to really go through those waves of understanding what is beneficial, what is good, what is right, what is um, the best path forward. And I had to learn a lot of lessons. I had to overcome a lot of challenges. But what I came to really realize is that it's me versus me. Prior to that, I felt like I had to be someone to be accepted. And
Yeah.
now, when I put everything down, I realized that I just had to accept myself and
Yeah.
be that next best version of who I know I want to become. And I knew that I couldn't have any like strings attached to being that now.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I just 1% better every day. And now I have been running my own business for the past 5 years. And there are lessons and challenges and pain in every single decision that we make. And for me, I think it's about how can I face these challenges on my own to become a more vulnerable and transparent and um, authentic and raw person. Because at the end of the day, like the only person that is judging you the most is yourself.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So, can we talk about the alcohol a little bit? Because that's really interesting. And I think people find that really interesting in this conversation. So, it sounds like it wasn't dominating you every day, but when you did drink, it was having like it was a negative kind of impact in your life. So, how often were you drinking and
Mm.
how would it play out if you can describe it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Alcohol was like a really hard one for me, to be honest. And I think it's probably the hardest one to talk about because a lot of people know me to be someone that can hold her grog,
Yep.
and a lot of people, that's like their perception because I would drink socially, but I would drink by myself. Like I would drink if I was stressed out. I would drink at barbecues. Like I would drink everywhere. And a lot of people, I had one drink and that was it. Like I wasn't a person that was like, I'll drink anything. No, it was Jim Beam and me. Like that was it. And
Yep.
everyone knows that and knew that. And a lot of people liked drinking with me because I was like the party animal. And as much as I understand that, it's been a really nice experience to have that inner confidence and courage without alcohol that I
Yep.
actually thought a can of courage, like it gave me courage, it gave me confidence.
Yep.
But I did always drink when on the weekends, like on a Friday or Saturday night, but I could go. The reason that I didn't drink every day is because I didn't know how to stop.
Just a quick one to interrupt the show, guys. Today's episode is brought to you by Connection Based Living, which is our outpatient recovery coaching program for people who are struggling with addictive patterns, addictions, however you want to label it. But we do things a little bit differently, okay? So we help people to get recovery without having to go to rehab and without having to check out of your life for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. You can achieve recovery in a different way and with a different lens, and think about it in a different um, belief system structure as well. So that's connection based living. That's what we do. Book a call. We'll see if we can help if that's of interest to you. That's the main function. We just approach things differently all round. So we approach the relationship that you have to substances differently. We explain a bit more about that on the phone. The method of delivery is a little bit different. The way in which we take you guys through exercises and actions and stuff like that you have to take to get change in your life is a little bit different as well. I'll explain that over the phone too. But it's really, the tools all laid out there for you to pick up and use in your life. And when you do put them into your life, you can achieve recovery without having to go through those traditional frameworks and methods and stuff like that. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. It doesn't fit everyone. So please book a call and have a chat to us, and we'll see if we're the right fit. But if it is the right fit, we definitely can help, and definitely can help you to change things up and head in the right direction. So if there's anybody out there struggling, or you have a family member that's struggling, just please reach out. First step is have a chat to us, and we'll see how we can help. All right, back to the show, everybody. Peace.
So when I had one, I would drink a whole bottle of Jim Beam in
Yeah.
one night, like by myself. If other people wanted to drink, I wouldn't share with anyone because I knew that I could finish a bottle by myself. So that's why I didn't have just one, and I didn't drink every day, because I'd be drinking 7 bottles a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so when you did drink, it was like drinking a lot. And what was the drinking about? Like confidence, really? Did you say, or like courage, or relieving anxiety, or was it just to have fun?
I mean, the reason that I drank on like a Friday or Saturday night was just because that was my norm. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't think of it to be anything wrong. Like, I genuinely had that mindset of it's okay. Like, it's accepted. Like, everyone does
yeah,
it. It's fine.
yeah,
And so I had put alcohol in the category of my mind of at least it's not drugs that
yeah.
I was, using
Hmm.
previously. But as when I decided to not drink, that's when I actually realized that it was fake confidence. It was
Yeah,
that fake dopamine and serotonin. And I know that I don't need anything outside of myself, any external product or substance to give me that. So it's like I had put this in a category in my mind of this is just joy. This is
yeah,
fun. You're allowed to. But
yeah.
that really is not the truth, right?
And what was it that made you kind of question this belief system that you had around alcohol, and sort of think like, oh, maybe I want to stop? And when did you actually stop?
What made me want to stop was late last year. I think it was about October, yeah, maybe November ish.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my kids, and I have 2 kids, a 7 and a 5-year-old, and I said, Friday nights are movie nights. And to me, it was like, okay, Friday nights are movie nights. How can I make it exciting for my children to leave me alone so I can drink?
Mm.
And I made it exciting because I was like, Friday nights we can have like fish and chips or like pizza or something simple where I don't have to cook. And then they sat down and watched a movie, and then I just got drunk.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. Like, this is not okay. My children are like, I'm creating this idea that it's okay for mum to get drunk. And then the
Mm.
next day I would be sick because I don't handle hangovers very well. And
Yep.
so my whole Saturday or Sunday was just gone to waste. And then my kids wanted to do things and have fun. And I was like, I couldn't get out of bed. And so then I just sat them in front of the TV and I was like, I'm sick. Help yourself to making like a sandwich or whatever, because I couldn't get out of bed. And then I
Mm.
was like, I'm literally not the mother that I want to be.
Yep.
And so that's why I decided, like, come December last year, I was like, I'm not drinking again. And
Mm.
I haven't declared sobriety. I'm not going to say that I'm sober forever, but I
Yep.
just want to work my way through the things that have actually affected me to getting to this point.
Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think from my personal experience in working with people and helping people and going through this journey myself, is I think like not declaring sobriety is, it sounds counterintuitive, but it can be helpful for a lot of people not to like put that pressure on yourself. But just kind of go, this is the goal. I don't want to drink. And these are the reasons why, because I want to be more connected to my kids, or I want to be more connected in my life, or whatever the reasons are. And doing it that way, I think that can be really helpful because it kind of takes that outside pressure off yourself, right? And it kind of comes organically through like your intentions and what you want to achieve
Yeah.
through your goals. Is that what you found? Is that it kind of
Mm.
hasn't become a label? It's just something that you want to achieve in your life
Yeah.
for the certain reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I have this different idea around the fact that, like, I stopped smoking marijuana, or, when I was 21. And I know that. I know that. And I will never pick that back up.
Yep.
All the other substances that I have used in the past, I will never pick that back up. I know that alcohol has definitely been like my longest, most consistent, but I think it's more around the fact that I just needed to come to realize that it did have a sense of control over me, and it made
Yep.
me feel these fake, emotions that
Yep.
I know I don't need substances to feel them. And so I
Yep.
just needed to, like, go through this level of awareness and growth within my own self. Um, and then on top of all of that, I realized that last year when I was drinking quite a bit, um, my business was not growing as much as
Mm.
I had hoped.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this moment of awareness that it was because I was drinking. And then
Yep.
I also was sick for days and days after I drank a bottle, and I wasn't able to put in the same amount of effort that I knew that I could.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting. And was that the biggest reason, like that and the kids, was that the biggest reasons for you to go, I want to make some changes here?
Yeah. Yeah. It was my own self awareness that I was not who I wanted to be, you
Mm.
know? And like I said, it's you versus you. At the end of the day, like, no one was forcing me to do anything. And I did it off my own accord, which means that if I have a problem, I also have a solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, what's your advice to people when they get to that space? You've done it with two substances now for a good period of time with each, where you've stopped them. A lot of people have trouble, you know, either stopping or staying stopped for a period of time. What have you found have kind of been the secrets for you to unlocking that like success with it?
Mm.
What's been very helpful for you?
It's a really good question, because I actually think that the answer is so different to everyone. Like,
Mm.
everyone has their own reasons. What I would ask, what I would encourage people to do is ask yourself, like, why is it that you're doing this? Like, what,
Mm.
like, truly, because you can't lie to yourself. You can lie to everybody else and you can say, the reason I use this substance is because of X, Y, and Z, but really you're the one that has to go to bed at nighttime with your own thoughts. You're
Mm.
the only one that knows the real raw truth. So why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Who is it that it might be impacting? And is it worth staying the same every single day for the rest of your days? Or can you just see if you can quit for a week? Like
Yep.
put it down for 1 week. If you can, wicked. What means you can't do it for 2 weeks? Make a goal for a month. If you can do it for a month, go for it. I said
Mm.
to myself, I'm going to go 1 whole year without alcohol, and that will be December.
Yep.
I've made it 8 months, and I've had a goal in mind. Now I have still people coming up to me saying, "Are you looking forward to having your next drink?" And I'm like, I might not even drink again.
Mm.
But that's because I have had those really, really deep thoughts within my own, mind of like, I don't want to do it. And if I do it, cool. If I have a drink, then I now know that I did a whole year. And so,
Mm.
really celebrating along the way, I think that's like something a lot of people tend to forget and that's why sobriety is such a key element. When you declare, you also, it can go one way or another, right? When you declare sobriety, you can either feel so much more shame if you happen to relapse, or you continue to celebrate and, put out there that you are 30 days clean, 60 days clean, etc. I never went to rehab. I never went to any like AA meetings, NA meetings, nothing like that. But I also do have a good support network of people like Danny Shannon in my corner. Like he
Mm.
he has definitely encouraged me to not have shame and guilt around substances, because if you relapse, get back up and keep figuring out how you want to take that next best step forward. And so really, like, your network and your support system is key, because like I
Mm.
said, the first time I ever picked up marijuana, it was the people I was hanging around.
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting. I wanted to ask you if you had support and help. So maybe you haven't gone through the traditional streams of support and help like AA and NA and rehab and stuff like that. But you have had, like you mentioned, Danny Shannon, who's, been on the show quite a few times now and is like big in the recovery space, and runs programs and stuff like that online, I think. So you have so each time you've stopped the substances, you've reached out for some support in some way. Is that right?
Not necessarily. I mean, I haven't necessarily reached out to get support.
Yeah.
I've never had like a sponsor or anything like that. I think it's been more just making a goal for myself, because like I said,
Mm.
you can't really lie to yourself. You can't,
Yeah.
BS yourself. And so I do have a partner who I've been with for almost 11 years, and he's very supportive, and he has, when I told him I'm not drinking, he still drinks because that's his choice. Like, he doesn't drink very often and he could go weeks without, a beer, but like, I don't hold my progress on the way that somebody else shows up for me. I hold
Hmm.
my own standards to my own integrity. And
Mm.
so Danny Shannon and I are more business partners there than we are recovery partners as such.
Mm.
He does have courses and programs on Encapsulator, and we more so help each other build businesses and stay focused on business stuff. But he has definitely been someone that has taught me that there's no shame and guilt in being raw about your recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the interesting thing. Like it's uh I I just and that's why I was keen to talk to you, when you kind of explained your journey of I don't even want to call it sobriety, but just your journey of like just finding a new path, let's call it, right, with substances. And I think it's important to kind of tell those stories and communicate the different ways that people change their relationships to substances over many years, and the different like partnerships and connections that they have with people, and how people help them in different ways. It might not be in a formal kind of setting, but you might connect with someone on a different level, as you said, like as like business partners or helping each other grow businesses. But then there's this mutual like connection that you have, and you can talk about that as well, and it kind of rubs off like magic dust. But I think it's just like the thing that I'm hearing is that it's important to kind of put yourself in the vicinity of like positive connections moving in the direction that you want to move in, whether that's with sobriety, whether that's with like growing a business, whether that's with spirituality, whatever it is. Because like there's just a bit of like magic dust that kind of rubs off when you put yourself around people that are heading in the right direction. As you would you kind of agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, the best way for me to describe that is energy transfers. You end up
Yep.
becoming who you surround yourself with, and whether that's your environment or my work is primarily online, so and I live in a remote community in the Kimberley, so I don't
Yep.
really see heaps of people all the time, but I dedicate my time to connecting and collaborating and building communities with people in the online space that are either they're just excelling, and they have this optimistic growth mentality. And I love connecting with people that have a painful story or have experienced trauma, and then have been able to come to terms with the fact that they don't have to always relive that cycle. And
Yep.
so I think we all have a story that has created us to be who we are today. And you know your environment and your connections and the people are just such an incredible element to who you continue to become as an individual.
Love that. Love that. Hey, I think that's a really good place to leave it. That was awesome chatting to you, mate, and hearing your story. I would love to have you back in like after December to kind of hear where you're thinking and what's going on with like the drinking and the sobriety story moving forward from there. But if people are listening and they're picking up what you're putting down, where can they find you?
Yeah, I would love to jump back on after December and see where we're at, because it might be a little bit of a different tale. I might
Yep.
have had a drink and just been able to control it, or I might not have. And I think the best thing that I come in with is that different perspective and that different idea of substances, where there are things that are a no-go, and then there are things where I'm like, maybe we'll see. But like you said, is like take what resonates and leave what doesn't. People can find me either on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, under Tamzin Young or Collective Consciousness Coach. Yeah, I'm across the board, and you can find me at either one of those places.
Awesome, mate. Hey, it was great having you on the show, and it was awesome hearing like your perspective and your story about uh, you know, a journey on a different pathway forward. I'm calling it with substances. So it was great. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and take it easy, everyone, and have a good day. Peace, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.